We tend to believe that our lives are shaped by big decisions. The job we choose, the person we love, the moments we rise or fall. But the truth is life is shaped far more by what you do in silence. It's shaped by what you repeat without applause, by the choices you make when no one is watching. That's where character is formed, not in the spotlight, but in the quiet shadows of your daily routine. If you want to know who you truly are, don't look at your attentions or your dreams. Look at your habits. Because what you do repeatedly matters far more than how you feel once. The Stoics understood this well. They didn't wait for motivation. They built systems. They trained their minds, bodies, and values not with intensity, but with consistency. This message isn't about changing your life overnight. It's about recognizing the quiet power of repetition, committing to small rituals each day that align you with your highest self. That's where your destiny is shaped. Your habits build your character. Most people think character is forged in dramatic acts, in bravery, in bold decisions, in moments of truth. But real character doesn't begin there. It begins in repetition. It grows in the background, quietly, slowly. The Stoics believe that who you are isn't what you say, it's what you do. You don't become disciplined by reading about discipline. You become disciplined by showing up every day and doing the work even when it's hard, even when no one sees. The truth is, most people overestimate the power of a single decision and underestimate the power of repetition. You can't meditate once and call yourself peaceful. You can't read one book and be enlightened. One healthy meal doesn't make you disciplined. It's what you do consistently that defines you. Every small action is a vote for the person you're becoming. When you wake up early, when you resist the urge to scroll, when you speak with kindness instead of sarcasm, you cast votes for strength, clarity, and discipline. Over time, those votes add up. They form your identity. They shape your reputation, not just in the eyes of others, but in the deep, quiet honesty of your own self-respect. The Stoics practiced this daily. Marcus Aurelius journaled each morning and night, not for the world, but to examine his own mind. Epictetus told his students not to explain philosophy, but to live it. And that happens through action, done again and again until it becomes part of who you are. Let's be honest, habit building is not about perfection. You'll miss days, you'll make mistakes, but that doesn't erase your progress. The Stoic path isn't about flawlessness. It's about returning every time. No excuses, no pity, just the commitment to keep going. And this is where many people get stuck. They wait for motivation, for energy, for inspiration. But character is built in the opposite moments, when you're tired, distracted, or unmotivated, and you still show up. That's when your habits strengthen. That's when your identity shifts from someone who tries to someone who is. Every result you see in your life, your peace, your focus, your confidence, comes from habits. Not from big one-time decisions, but from small, repeated ones. If you want to grow, you don't have to change everything at once. You just need to start doing small things consistently. Because identity isn't discovered, it's built. It's shaped by action, small daily choices that reinforce who you are becoming. You are not what you say you'll do. You are what you keep doing. So ask yourself, are your habits building the person you want to become? Belief becomes identity, but belief begins with action. You don't build confidence by repeating affirmations. You build it by keeping your word, doing hard things, and proving to yourself again and again that you are capable, resilient, and trustworthy. The Stoics understood this long before psychology gave it a name. They didn't focus on self-image. They focused on self-discipline. They didn't worry about personality types. They paid attention to daily habits. Because in the Stoic view, who you are is shaped not by what you say, but by what you repeatedly practice. If you wanted to become someone who stays calm under pressure, it won't happen by reading quotes about peace. It happens by choosing stillness in moments of chaos, by slowing your breath in stress, by learning to pause instead of panic. Each time you do that, you reinforce a new identity. The good news: identity is not fixed. You are not stuck as an anxious, reactive, or inconsistent person. That version of you is simply what you've rehearsed. Change comes from practicing a new pattern repeatedly, consistently, patiently. Think of a sculptor shaping stone. He doesn't strike once expecting perfection. He returns to it daily, carving slowly, guided by vision and discipline. That's how identity is built, not through sudden breakthroughs, but through lasting effort. Yet our culture clings to a myth that we must feel like the person we want to be before we can act like them. That we need confidence to speak up, discipline to begin, clarity to move forward. The Stoic turns that on its head. Action first, identity second. You act like the person you want to become, and your mind eventually catches up. That's why your habits matter. Every action is a data point, and over time, those points form a pattern, a belief that becomes your reality. I showed up, I stayed calm, I didn't quit. That's how self-image evolves, not through force, but through repetition. So ask yourself, what identity are your habits reinforcing? Every time you scroll mindlessly, speak impulsively, or skip your commitments, you reinforce one version of yourself. But each time you follow through, no matter how small, you reinforce another better one. You are not what you say you are. You are what you prove through repeated choice. Now here's the key: choose simplicity over motivation. Motivation is unreliable. It's a feeling, and feelings change with energy, weather, sleep, and even passing comments. If you wait to feel motivated before acting, you'll only move when everything feels perfect. But transformation doesn't happen under ideal conditions. It happens in the ordinary, in repetition, in simplicity. That's why Stoics don't chase motivation. They build systems, because simplicity is stable. It doesn't depend on how you feel. It simply says, here's the task, do it. It removes the emotional debate and frees you to act. Take something simple, like waking up early. If your routine depends on feeling inspired, you'll hit snooze most days. But if you decide, this is when I get up no matter what, and make that process automatic, it's no longer a decision. It becomes part of who you are. The Stoics were practical. Marcus Aurelius reminded himself daily, you were born to do this, so why are you still lying in bed? Not because he felt like jumping up, but because duty doesn't wait for emotion. Simplicity carries you through the days when motivation fails. Complicated systems break down under pressure, but simple habits endure. They ask little and give everything. How do you apply this? Remove friction. Make the right action easy to start. Want to read more? Leave the book by your bed. Want to write? Open your laptop before sleep so it's ready in the morning. Want to meditate? Sit in the same chair at the same time every day. No questions asked. You don't need more motivation. You need less resistance. The more complex your system, the easier it is to find an excuse. But when your habit is clear and simple, I do this at this time in this way, there's no room for hesitation. It becomes rhythm. And over time, rhythm becomes identity. Simplicity doesn't mean doing less. It means removing resistance to what matters most. Because you don't rise to the level of your motivation. You fall to the level of your systems. So stop chasing the perfect plan or waiting for the perfect mindset. Ask instead, what's simple enough that I can do it every day no matter what? Because that consistency, simplicity, structure is what changes your life. Take a look around you. What does your space reflect? Hate, clarity, comfort, or growth? Your environment is never neutral. It constantly nudges you toward patterns, behaviors, and emotions. The clutter on your desk, the noise in your home, the apps on your phone, and the people in your life all influence your habits more than you might realize. Modern research confirms what the Stoics already knew. Our surroundings shape our behavior. People eat less when food is out of sight. Productivity increases in clean, quiet spaces. And we're more likely to stick with new habits when our physical environment is designed to support them. So why do we blame ourselves for failure when our environment is working against us? If you want to read more, place your book where you'll see it, not buried behind a screen. If you want to stop mindless scrolling, remove the temptation log out, silence notifications, or delete the app altogether. If you want to wake up early, set your alarm across the room and lay out your clothes where you'll trip over them. These aren't productivity hacks, they're boundaries. They are physical cues that align your external space with your internal goals. Epictetus once told his students, if you want to improve, be content to be thought foolish and stupid. That advice wasn't only about social perception. It was about creating an environment so simplified that others might not understand it. Maybe you don't decorate like others. Maybe your phone is stripped down. Maybe your workspace is plain. That's fine. Discipline isn't about impressing others. It's about supporting yourself. Think of a monk in a monastery. Their environment is built for silence, clarity, and ritual. It removes distractions and reinforces intention. You don't have to live like a monk, but you can create your own disciplined space, one that reminds you who you're becoming, not just what you're tempted to escape into. And it's not just about physical surroundings. The people you allow into your life shape your habits too. If your environment is full of drama, gossip, or chaos, your habits will reflect that. Surround yourself with people who live the way you want to live, not perfectly, but intentionally. Discipline is contagious, and so is carelessness. When your environment is designed with purpose, discipline becomes easier. You no longer have to force yourself forward each day. You simply follow the path you have already prepared. That's what the Stoics understood. If you want to change your behavior, don't just change your mind, change your world. Ask yourself, is my environment working for me or against me? Then start reshaping it. One object, one habit, one decision at a time. The most disciplined people are not always the strongest. They're simply smarter about what they allow near their attention. And remember, what you repeat, you become. Personal growth isn't about a dramatic breakthrough. It doesn't happen in one big moment. It happens quietly, subtly, almost invisibly through repetition. What you do daily, not occasionally, defines who you are. The Stoics believe this deeply. The mind, like stone, is shaped by whatever touches it most often. If your daily life is filled with reactivity, distraction, or negativity, your character will reflect those things, not because you were born that way, but because you've practiced them. Fortunately, this truth also works in your favor. If you start to practice calm patience and discipline, even in small doses, those qualities will begin to take root and grow. You don't need to feel transformed on day one. You just need to start practicing what you want to become. Let's take a simple example. If you journal each morning, even for 5 minutes, you are not just putting thoughts on paper. You're training your mind to pause, to reflect, and to slow down before reacting. Over time, your mindset shifts. You begin to think before speaking. You become more intentional, not from one big realization, but from daily repetition. The problem is most people don't wait long enough to see the change. They give up too early and tell themselves the habit didn't work. But what they really mean is, I didn't stick with it long enough to become someone new. Repetition doesn't shout, it whispers. And if you're not paying attention, you'll miss the quiet transformation. Every time you practice self-restraint, you strengthen a more composed version of yourself. Every time you speak with intention, you train a more thoughtful version of yourself. Every time you follow through, even when you don't feel like it, you build a more reliable version of yourself. Seneca said it best, we become brave by doing brave things, not by waiting for courage to arrive, but by repeating the action until it becomes natural. That's the Stoic path of repetition, with awareness, action, with intention. So if you want to change, don't wait for a breakthrough. Pay attention to your repetitions. What are you doing every day without thinking? What actions are quietly shaping your attitude, your focus, and your direction? Because discipline is not theoretical. It's lived, one choice at a time. You are not what you say you want to be. You are what you keep choosing to become, one small action, one decision at a time. Discipline is built in motion, not theory. And often the most powerful shifts don't begin with grand gestures. They start with small, deliberate steps repeated consistently. When people feel stuck, they tend to believe they need a massive change. Quit everything. Start over. Make a bold move to reset their lives, but the Stoics knew better. Real change doesn't begin with extremes. It begins with small actions so simple they almost seem meaningless until they begin to reshape everything. Because it's not the size of the action that matters, it's the direction. Every time you make your bed in the morning, you reinforce order. Every time you go for a short walk instead of scrolling on your phone, you move from passivity to engagement. Every time you pause to breathe instead of reacting, you strengthen emotional stability. These choices may seem small, but over time they create massive transformation. The Stoics mastered the art of micro-action. They didn't teach radical life overhauls. They taught self-governance in the small details: how you rise, how you eat, how you speak, how you work. Marcus Aurelius reminded himself that even emperors start with small efforts. The impediment to action advances action, he wrote. What stands in the way becomes the way. This shift doesn't require perfection. You don't need to map out every step of your future. You just need to take the next one. Trying to change your relationship with health, time, or mindset. Don't pressure yourself to wake up at 4 a.m. Run 10 miles, write a book, and meditate for an hour. That kind of pressure leads to burnout. Instead, wake up 15 minutes earlier, stretch, read one page, write one honest sentence in a journal, drink a glass of water. These aren't grand gestures, but they send a message: I'm showing up. Repeating that message creates momentum, and momentum builds identity. Most people underestimate the power of daily proof. They want transformation without the process. But transformation is the result. The process is made of small, consistent actions. Miss one day and not much changes. Miss 20 and your old habits return. Stick with it for 90 days and you may not recognize who you used to be. This truth works both ways. Neglect the small things and the decline is just as real. 5 extra minutes of distraction can lead to an hour of avoidance. Skipping one task becomes skipping the entire day. Before long, minor decisions lead to major consequences. That's why Stoicism emphasizes presence. The small moment is the big one if you treat it that way. So ask yourself, what small action can you take today, right now, that moves you 1 inch closer to strength, clarity, and self-respect? You don't need a revolution, you need repetition. Tiny choices done with intention, that's where lasting change begins. Habits also protect you from emotional reactivity. Emotions are powerful. They move us, shake us, and sometimes define our lives. But they can also deceive us. A sudden surge of anger, fear, or sadness can pull us into saying things we regret or making poor decisions. The Stoics didn't try to suppress emotion. They trained their response to it. And one of the most effective tools they used was habit. Because when emotion clouds the mind, habit gives structure. It acts as a script when feelings try to take over. It gives you something to return to, something stable, something predictable. Let's say you have the habit of journaling each evening. On a hard day when anger or stress builds, that habit doesn't ask how you feel. It simply says, sit, write, reflect. And in the act of doing it, you process the storm. You don't explode, you turn inward. You find clarity. Or maybe you've built the habit of walking in silence each morning. One day you receive bad news. Your chest tightens. Your thoughts spiral, but your feet, guided by memory, begin to move. And in that movement, you breathe. You begin to recenter. You don't suppress the emotion, but you don't let it control you either. That's the power of habit. It anchors you. It keeps you steady when your emotions try to sweep you away. It reminds you that you don't need to feel good to do what's right. You just need to follow through. And in that follow through, you become someone stronger than your mood. The Stoics knew the danger of reactive living. If your actions depend on your emotions, you live at the mercy of whatever hits you. But when your days are structured by steady routines, even simple ones, you create inner stability. As Seneca wrote, no man is more unhappy than he who never faces adversity, for he is not permitted to prove himself. That includes emotional adversity. In difficult moments, your habits either hold you up or fall apart. That's why you don't wait until the storm comes. You build your structure in calm so that when the winds rise, you're ready. Discipline isn't cold or robotic. It's compassionate. It gives you tools to protect your peace, not just when life is easy, but especially when it's hard. When you're overwhelmed, stressed, or hurt, do you fall into chaos or return to structure? The goal isn't to avoid emotion, it's to stop letting it control your life. When your habits become stronger than your reactions, something powerful happens. You stop being a prisoner of your feelings and start becoming the author of your responses. Most people wait for motivation to strike before they act. They sit and hope for inspiration, that perfect wave of energy to finally move them. But they misunderstand how it works. Motivation doesn't come first. Momentum does. Action, even small action, awakens drive. The Stoics understood this long ago. You don't wait to feel ready. You take a step and the feeling follows. You act even when it feels pointless. You move even when it doesn't feel meaningful. And slowly momentum builds. Like a wheel at rest, the hardest part is getting it to roll. Once it moves, it gets easier to keep it going. That's how life works too. Wake up and stretch. That leads to a walk. That clears your mind. That improves your decisions. Suddenly, your morning is different, not because of a surge of motivation, but because you created momentum. And momentum doesn't just change behavior, it changes identity. When you show up consistently, your self-image shifts. You move from being someone who tries to someone who does, from someone who waits to someone who acts. The voice of resistance quiets, and the need for external motivation fades. You're already moving, and that's where motivation lives. The Stoics didn't wait to feel inspired. They practiced philosophy in hardship and silence and in routine. Marcus Aurelius didn't journal when he felt like it. He did it daily because he knew momentum was more reliable than mood. Action came first, meaning came later, and it doesn't take massive momentum to change your direction. Just enough to break the inertia. You don't need a perfect plan. Just don't stand still. Clarity won't appear before you act. It meets you on the path. Most people think the answer is to feel more. The Stoic knows the answer is to do more with less. Ask yourself, where in your life are you waiting to feel ready when what you really need is to move? Start small. Start quietly. But start, because momentum doesn't need permission. It just needs a decision. Once it's built, it will carry you further than motivation ever could. Rituals reflect your values. We talk about values as if they're ideas, things we write on a wall or admire in others. But your real values are shown in your rituals, in what you do consistently without being reminded, in what you return to even when no one's watching. Rituals aren't just about productivity. They're personal declarations. This is what I believe in. Marcus Aurelius didn't wait for wisdom to strike. He created space for it every morning. Epictetus didn't just talk about self-control. He lived it through structure. Whether it was writing, walking, meditating, or reflecting, these rituals weren't for performance. They were practices of identity. When you write every day, even without brilliance, you're saying, I value reflection. When you train early, you say, I value strength. When you meditate through chaos, you say, I value clarity over noise. These aren't just habits. They're mirrors of what matters most. But not all rituals are conscious. Some happen by default. That nightly scroll through your phone, that's a ritual, and it says you value distraction. That angry reaction in a tough conversation, that too is a ritual, one of self-abandonment. We're all practicing something. The question is, are your rituals aligned with your highest values or your lowest impulses? This is why Stoicism is so intentional. It's not about grand vision, it's about small, meaningful repetition. Not productivity hacks, but character-building practices. A ritual doesn't have to be complex. It can be as simple as a breath before you speak, a handwritten note, 5 minutes of silence in the morning, or a nightly routine to wind down. What matters is not the length or difficulty. What matters is the consistency and the message it sends. This is who I am. Yes, rituals require discipline, but once in place, they become more than habits. They become anchors, something steady to return to when life becomes chaotic. If you want to understand your values, don't look at what excites you. Look at what you repeat. And if that doesn't match the person you want to be, don't wait for a breakthrough. Build a new ritual. Let it be small. Let it be silent. Let it be real. Discipline builds freedom. At first, the words may sound like opposites. Discipline feels like structure and restriction. Freedom feels like ease and choice. But without discipline, freedom isn't real. Without structure, freedom collapses into chaos, into distraction, regret, and wasted potential. True freedom, the kind that lasts, is built through discipline. The Stoics didn't fear it, they embraced it. Discipline isn't punishment, it's clarity. It means you don't argue with yourself daily. You don't live at the mercy of your moods. You don't wait for the right moment. You choose once and follow through. That choice frees you from indecision. Think about it. The person who trains every day doesn't worry about their health falling apart. The one who guards their focus doesn't get pulled into every distraction. The one who speaks honestly doesn't need to remember lies. Discipline simplifies life, and simplicity becomes peace. Stoic discipline isn't rigid or harsh. It's rooted in self-respect. It says, I am worthy of structure. I am worthy of a life that reflects my values. That isn't confinement. That's alignment. And when you're aligning, your best energy emerges. Without discipline, you're not free. You're at the mercy of your urges. You say yes when you mean no. You avoid discomfort even when growth is on the other side. You chase every impulse hoping for happiness and end up more lost. But with discipline, you start choosing your responses. You live with intention. You rise not by chance, but by choice. And yes, discipline is demanding. It asks you to show up when it's hard, to say no to the easy path, to keep going when no one's watching. But that's what gives it power. Every act of discipline says, I choose to lead myself. As Seneca wrote, no man is free who is a slave to his body. That includes urges, distractions, and fears. True freedom is being able to say no, to decide for yourself. That strength doesn't come from wishing. It comes from training, from structure, from discipline. So if you want freedom, the kind that lets you think clearly, move confidently, and live peacefully, don't avoid discipline. Build it, make it your own, not as a burden, but as a gift. Because once you train yourself to act on what matters, not just on what feels good, you'll discover what most never do. The most liberated life is one built through quiet, consistent self-mastery. In the end, your life isn't shaped by what you wish for. It's shaped by what you return to day after day. Breath by breath, the world will pull you in every direction toward distraction, urgency, noise. But habits are how you stay anchored. They are the invisible architecture of your character, the proof of your values, the foundation of your peace. You don't need dramatic change. You don't need a perfect plan. You need a system, a rhythm, a simple set of daily actions that reflect who you want to become. Show up for them, and they will show up for you in your focus, in your strength, in your calm. That is the essence of Stoicism. Power is not found in intensity, but in consistency, not in noise, but in the silence of discipline. So choose your habits with care, build them with intention, and return to them, especially when you feel lost, because the person you become is hidden in what you repeat. And if this message resonates with you, don't just keep it in your mind, keep it in your life. Share it with someone who needs the reminder, because real transformation doesn't happen in a single moment. It happens quietly, habit by habit, together.